Hey, my name is Ashely Mintz, and I'm a visual artist in Nashville, Tennessee. I also do instrumental music and poetry, and you can find my work at Ashely Mintz, ASHLEYMINTZ .weebly, WEEBLY.com. And also I'm on YouTube under Wild Enemy.
Why Wild Enemy for your YouTube name?
I know it's so random.
But rememberable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the reason I came up with that name is because I was actually, and I still want to do like a music project where I am doing like instrumental music and then doing poetry, performing poetry over it. And then like some singing also. And so I wanted like an interesting name for the poet, me being like a poet or whatever, or a musician. And I just wanted an interesting name. So this is going to sound so cheesy, but I actually went online and found a title or like a band. I think it was a band name generator. Like you can go online and like Google that, and then it'll like, you can push like get a name for me, and then it'll like have a random name, and it'll ask you certain questions to try to like generate a name that's good for the person, that's doing it. And that name did not come up. Wild Enemy didn't come up, but the word wild, it was like wild something. And then like further, because there was like a list of them. And then further down, it was like something enemy. And I just was like looking through them. And then I just saw the two words together, like even though they were on different like rows. And I was like, what about Wild Enemy? And I had some other ones like listed that I thought about, but that one like stood out. So it was just totally random. I don't even know. Like, people are like, what does that mean? I'm like, I really don't know.
Well, I'm here to tell you, I like it. If I didn't already have a name, I would steal that name. I'm just letting you know.
We'll copyright it.
Yeah, there you go.
I like it. It just like stood out to me. I was like, that sounds really interesting. Like, yeah.
Yeah. What do you think you could live? Well, obviously you could. How do you think your life would be different if you could not be creative?
I guess it's easy to say now that it would be hard, or that I wouldn't like it because I do have like a really creative, like I do create a lot. I have a really creative life, but like if it was taken away now, I think it would be really difficult. Like if it was suddenly like, oh, you can't do this anymore or that, I would have a really hard time. But I think I also would figure out other ways to be creative. I would try to figure it out.
Yeah. If you could go back in time and change anything about your creative career, what would you change?
I would have let people help me more. I feel like I struggled a lot. Like when I used to take my art places, there was one time when I took some paintings on like a bus, and I had them in like these huge bags, like, and I was carrying them on, and like I could have asked somebody to like but I didn't. I used to not ask for help. Like I used to just try to do things on my own, because when I was younger, I kind of felt like I didn't have anybody to help me with a lot of things. So I kind of grew up thinking like, oh, I have to do everything on my own. But I think I would have, once I started, like people would ask if I needed help with things, and I'd be like, okay, yeah. And then it was like, things are so much easier.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I struggled a lot unnecessarily. And so I probably would have asked for more help.
Well, you mentioned earlier that most of your poetry is sad. Is there a reason for that?
Well, part of it is, so my mom actually is a writer, and a lot of her stuff is very like raw and like real life, just very like just down to the core, like human level stuff, like just painful stuff. And when I was a teenager, she used to have me like read some of her stuff. She'd be like, what do you think of this? Or do you get this? And some of it was like hard to read. And I mean, but I was a teenager too. Like I was pretty like naive. So I'd be like, oh my gosh, this made me sad, or this, I couldn't read this. And but then I realized that I liked that. When I started seeing more visual art too, I realized that I liked art that really said something and that didn't hide, that wasn't like simple. Like it really said something, like it really spoke to me, like the more painful stuff. And it was just kind of natural when I started writing poetry for the subjects that I write about to come to me. Like I've written about like poverty and stuff too. And when I was like a few years ago, I was living in an area that was kind of like, I guess some parts of it could be considered like poor areas, or I don't know if I would say poor, but just like it was like not the richest area. And I would just see like people on the streets, like drunk and stuff. And then so that inspired me to write something. So a lot of it is just what I see, like especially if it's like kind of harsh stuff. I feel more drawn to writing that stuff.
Really, you think that your best creativity, or this is a question, I guess, do you think your best creativity comes out of a place of pain as opposed to a place of joy?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think lately it is more out of joy. Like in the last year, what I've been creating has been more out of joy. But yeah, when I first started out, a lot of it was coming from a place of pain. And part of it was my own pain, like my family's, stuff like that. And then just seeing, just like around me, what was going on. And I think that helped me understand and not be so naive to how the world is.
Yeah.
Like, because I think I guess I was kind of like, how do I process all of this? Like, because before I moved here, I was really naive. I was really just like, I don't know. When you're young, it's just like, oh, the world is great. And like, I mean, I guess not for everyone, but for me, it was, I mean, I had some hard stuff growing up, but I still felt like, oh, everything's, people are whatever. The world's great. Everyone's happy. And then when I moved to Nashville, there was just a lot that I experienced, that I saw other people experience, that made me like, oh, there's, it's kind of hard being alive, being human.
Right.
And so that I had to go through that, from going to being naive and young and really like going through growing up and seeing the world for what it is, but then also getting past that and being like, okay, so this kind of stuff is going on. How can I still live and, do what I can to like help or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's my way of like processing all the craziness.
Yeah. Definitely. It's like a child when they find out Santa Claus isn't real.
Right.
Like
exactly.
it's that moment. And I definitely understand what you're saying. Like once you leave your little bubble and you go out into the world, you have to be an adult now.
Yeah.
And fortunately for you, you understood that very quickly. Some people don't get it for a long time,
right.
and they suffer for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you want your legacy to be?
I think that I want it to be like being able to, like, one of the biggest things I really like to do is I like to go to underserved communities, like I said. So a lot of that is Black communities, to teach art. And I want to keep doing that. I want to know that like kids have opportunities that they might not otherwise have had, because I know what it's like to some, like at some extent, to not have certain opportunities. And I've seen other people who were really talented, but they just didn't have opportunities to let it flourish. So I think it's important to make sure, at least for me, to make sure that in the Black community there's opportunities, because you never know who could be an artist, or who could be like anything. It doesn't have to be just art, but having art workshops and classes can help them, dream and be like, oh, I can do this.
You got any poetry about love?
Yeah, a lot of my poetry is kind of sad, honestly, but I have written a few about love.
I'm gonna put you on the spot. Define love to you.
Oh my gosh. Love is, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I think that I think it's just like showing up for another person, even when it's not the easiest thing to do, if you care about them. And there's one time when I heard or read somewhere that when we love someone, we actually are reflecting our own like inner love, or we're like projecting it to the other person. Like it was said more eloquently, but like I guess it, or that like when we fall in love with someone or love someone, that it's like a reflection of our own capacity to love, like in general.
Mm-hmm.
It's something like that. And I think that that's true. It's just hard, like when, like if you love someone and then it ends, it's like, well, why does it hurt so bad? It's like,
yeah, absolutely.
I don't want it. Then I'm like, I don't feel that love anymore. Like what? I don't know. But yeah, but I think mostly that's what I've learned. Like from being in like relationships and just even like friendships and like family, it's like if you love this person, like of course you want to like set boundaries and stuff. You don't want someone to walk over you, but you want to like show up for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like keep showing up for them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the biggest thing.
Okay.
What about you?
Let's see. I think love is showing up for a person, but I also think it's wanting to see them happy regardless to the pain you might feel.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like as long as it's not causing your death or depression or these things. And again, like
mm-hmm.
I'm in agreement with you. I don't want anybody walking over me, but I think it's wanting them to be happy. I don't want to say
mm-hmm.
at all costs because I'm not going to rob a bank for anyone. But I definitely feel like it's something that, you know, it's like if that person says, well, look, I'm not happy in a relationship anymore and I want to move on. Well, I love you. So yeah, I want to see you happy, although it might hurt me, but
Yeah.
I want to see you happy. Yeah.
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 I like that. I will say robbing a bank might be kind of fun. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I am self-taught. So I wasn't always into like visual art when I was younger. I was into like in high school. Well, okay, in middle school, I actually played clarinet all through middle school. And then in high school, I was in dance. I was in choir. And it wasn't until after I moved to Nashville that I started painting. And I moved to Nashville because I wanted to like play piano and I wanted to do songwriting. And this was like one of the places to do it and a lot cheaper than New York and LA.
That's right.
So, yeah, so I randomly just like picked up and came to Nashville. And shortly after I just started painting. I did some drawings and I entered them into like this exhibit for new artists or upcoming, like emerging artists. And they were chosen. And I was like, what? That's crazy. And then I was like, I'm going to try to paint these exact same kind of designs. And then after that, I just kind of, like, that was it. I was painting all the time. And I have taken classes. Like when I was in school, I took a few painting classes afterwards, but I'm mostly self-taught.
Okay. So what is your creative process like? Like, are you in a store and then something strikes you, or do you have to kind of force yourself to sit down and say, okay, I'm going to be creative today?
It kind of depends. I've had to like kind of force myself if I have an exhibit coming up, because I'm kind of bad about timing things sometimes. So usually when I have an exhibit, I'll have an idea of like a theme or what I want to do with it. And then I will have to like make myself have the time to do it. Other times I'll just be inspired by something. And sometimes I'll just want to paint. Like I'll just be like, I want to paint something today. And then I'll just start. Usually I don't know what I'm going to paint when I first start. So.
Wow. Okay.
I just will start painting. Sometimes I do sketch beforehand. Yeah.
But do you complete the entire project, or do you, like, once you sit down, do you complete it? Do you have to get it all out, or do you kind of go in phases?
Oh no, it takes a while usually. And
Okay.
actually, yeah, it takes a while. Usually, even if I'm doing, I did some, like I have an exhibit now in a small city outside of Nashville, and I did some really small pieces. They're like 6 inches by 6 inches, and even those took a while because I did so many like layers, and it was like mixed media, so it usually takes a while. And so usually what I do is when I'm going to do an exhibit, I will like have a bunch of canvases like laying around wherever I'm going to be painting. And then I'll go to one and I'll kind of start working on it. And then I'll let that dry and start working on another. And then I'll kind of like move around like that. But it's really rare for me to finish something like right then. I have done it before, but it's really rare.
Okay. From a business perspective, who sets up your exhibits? Do you set them up, or you have an agent or somebody helping you
I
out?
I do, yeah. I usually contact places, but lately I've been lucky, like people will contact me.
Oh, really?
But usually it's me. Yeah, but usually it's me. Like even before, when I was like years ago when I first started, I was calling places like hotels. I would go to like boutiques, I would go to doctors' offices, and I'd be like, "Do you guys need any art like to hang?" And usually it worked. I've had my stuff in like some random places, um, just displayed or like exhibited. And then that's, yeah, I usually call places and see what their submission process is, and then I go from there.
So are you able to, I guess without getting too personal, are you able to kind of cost wise, like you're able to cover the cost of your paint, and you're kind of able to control what you do as far as like what you paint and stuff like that? Like, are you generating an income?
Yep, uh-huh. And
Okay.
it keeps getting better like each year. So when I first started painting, I would keep track of like my receipts and how much I was spending, and then how much I would, or what I would sell. And I definitely, when I first started, was like spending more than I was selling or than I was
Uh-huh.
making.
Yeah.
And so I tried to cut down on that. Like I would just try to buy supplies and then be like, okay, I'm not going to keep buying it if I'm not selling anything. Um, and then I also got really good at doing getting sales, like getting coupons and stuff. I still am really good at that. Like
Okay.
I'm good at catching sales. Um, but yeah, so now I definitely well, it depends on the time of year, but a lot of my income now is coming from art stuff. But it's taken a lot of years of hard work and
Yeah. Yeah.
learn just learning by trial and error, like things to do and things not to do.
Yeah. Well, good for you, man, because I think that's the dream for most of us, right? It's like to be able to
Right.
create and sustain ourselves with what we create.
Yeah.
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 So if I buy a painting from you, though, does that come with like exclusive rights to resale and all that? How does that work for you?
Usually artists don't, like if they sell a painting or a piece of art, it usually does not come with like the copyright of the image. And so usually I don't, like I'll just sell the art, but I'll like wherever I sell, I should probably put it on my website, but I have it like on my Etsy
Yeah.
where I say like sale of this piece doesn't transfer like the copyright or something. I put something like that.
Absolutely.
But yeah, because that would be, I mean, some people do, I think some artists do license their work to certain companies for like journaling and stuff like that. But those companies would pay like a lot
Yeah.
to have the full rights.
Yeah. What is your favorite piece so far that you've created?
Um, it's really hard to say. I have a few that are like my babies, but I have one called Threads.
Mhm.
And it's a mixed media piece. And I just started doing more mixed media and wanting to get into like collage. And so it's based on like a poem that I started writing, but I haven't finished it yet. But I have some of the writing in the painting too. So yeah.
Yeah. Do you create every day, or you just have time set aside to create?
That kind of depends too on like if I have something going on, like if I have an exhibit or if I have something coming up that I have to write for, I will create every day, like up until then. Usually when I finish doing paintings for an exhibit and setting up the exhibit, I'll take a break and I'll just not do anything creative. Like I found that I need breaks because I feel if I keep going after I've done a lot, I feel like I'm forcing it and it's not natural. And then I get burned out from it. I think that as creatives, there has to be like some kind of break.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, I go through the same thing as well.
Talking about.
Yeah, I like for myself, like I find that I'm doing too much screen time, like sitting at the computer, editing, interviewing, sitting at the computer, like, and so I'll have a 5 or 8 hour day, like almost like I'm in an office, and I'm like, well, this is not why I'm doing this, you know?
Yeah.
So I too take, now I don't let it go too long because I think like just as far as the algorithm is concerned, as posting stuff, I try not to let it go too long, but I definitely understand what you're saying.
Yeah. And I try not to let it go too long too, because like with painting, I feel like I need to kind of like keep it going, not only to keep trying to get work doing stuff like that, like teaching workshops and stuff, but also to keep learning different things, like with art, like different techniques and stuff.
Yeah. So. Now, when you're teaching your workshops, what's the demographic? Are you teaching kids, adults?
Oh, it's been all ages. Usually when I do workshops, I do community arts projects, and then the workshops will be part of that. And I usually try to go to community centers where there's youth in like underserved communities, so they're not getting a lot of art programming as it is. So I try to do that, and then it's free to them. Supplies are included. I also try to do some workshops for like adults as well, and then I try to somehow incorporate like senior citizens as well. And I did do one project a few years ago where it literally was people ages like 5 to like 90. And so we did workshops where people painted and created mixed media self-portraits, and then they wrote like a poem, and we framed everything and exhibited it like at this place here in Nashville. And it turned out really well. It was really cool to have that age range, like 5 to like 90-ish.
Yeah.
So yeah, I try to hit everybody, try to give everybody a chance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you find that everybody kind of has a creative thread, or only certain people are creative? Kind of, because I think that's the way we've been socialized to think that only certain people are creative.
Yeah, I honestly think that everybody does. And when I've done workshops, usually like with adults, they'll be like, oh, I've never been creative, or I don't know how to paint. But honestly, like they come up with something really good. And I'm like, you don't even realize your own creativity, your own like expression. That's why I like to do the workshops too, because it helps people be like, oh, I am kind of creative. And then they'll want to hopefully go and do something later on, like with creativity. But yeah, I don't like the idea that just some people are creative. I mean, I think people use their creativity in different ways.
Absolutely.
But I think it causes like a separateness when you're like, oh, like I can never be creative, but that person's so creative. I don't know. It just, that's always been kind of weird to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
To think that way.
Yeah. Well, speaking of watching people, evolve during an hour or 2 hour class, have you watched yourself evolve? Do you recognize your growth in your work?
Yeah. I've always like tried kind of different things. So when I first started out, I was just drawing like these random like abstract designs, and then I would like use bright colors still. And then I started wanting to paint those. And then it kind of went into, there was this one time when I first started painting, I had gone to see an exhibit by Aaron Douglas, who's an African-American artist in Nashville. But he passed away like years ago or decades ago. And after I saw his work, I was inspired, and I did some paintings that were kind of based around like slavery, but I didn't know what I was doing yet. It was just random, but it was based off of what I saw in his work. And then I kept painting, and it was mostly like acrylic, just very like random thing, like abstract shapes and stuff. And then I started doing like mixed media. I feel like I really started growing like in 2016. I did an exhibit called Being Black in America. And I think that one, that kind of set the tone for the kind of work I still am doing. And I think at that point I was like, okay, this is kind of who I am as an artist, but I still definitely had a lot of growing to do. And I still feel like I do. But so, yeah, I definitely have seen the growth. And I still try to figure out where I'm going with it too. I'm kind of like, I want to like try different things still. And I'm just getting into collage. So that's kind of new to me, but I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I'm always growing.
Well, has the journey thus far, like, has it been fulfilling? Has it been like, you know, what you, well, I guess another question would be, has it been what you expected it to be?
Definitely not what I expected. I really thought I was going to come to Nashville and like just do songwriting. And then I started doing the painting thing. And then I even started writing like poetry. I was kind of into poetry before, but I really got into it. And I just, it's not like what I would have expected.
Okay.
Which is a good thing. I had some rough times being on my own here, like some really rough times, but I think I had to go through them though. And I had to prove to myself like that I am willing to still try to do like creative stuff, live a creative life the best that I could. And like just keep going. Like at one point I even did go back home for like 4 months. And I was like, I'm done. Like, I'm done with Nashville because I was just going through a hard time. And I went back home and I was like, I'm going to stay home. But I still had things going on in Nashville. And then I kept going back and forth. And then I just came back. And then, yeah. So
I'm glad you stuck it out. I'm glad you stuck it out.
Me too. Yeah. And I do feel like I did a lot of growth, like creatively since about 2016-ish. But also just as a person too, like not just in my creative life, but just in general. And I didn't realize it until really recently. But I look back and I'm like, man, like I did a lot of growing there.
Yeah. Now, your contemporaries, as far as it pertains to your artwork, or do they look like you, or are there a lot of people who look like you in the industry, or what?
Not that I've seen. There are, so I'm mixed. My mom's Black, Native American, and my dad was white. And so I haven't personally met a lot of mixed artists here, at least not like Black and white. There definitely are Black artists and then white artists, but I haven't met a lot of like mixed. I feel like now Black artists are getting more exposure here. I feel like they really weren't in the last few years, at least not that I could see, and especially Black women. But luckily that's changing. Like I'm seeing a lot more here now. And I mean, I guess the actual art itself, there are some artists that I can kind of see where I'm kind of similar. But as far as who look like me, I haven't really seen any. I know like some artists who are mixed, like Japanese and white.
Okay.
And like Hispanic and white.
Yeah.
But
so who was your sounding board then? And who are your I guess for lack of a better word, who are your friends? Like say, hey, look, I'm having a bad day, or how do you think this looks? Do you have any art buddies, I guess?
Yeah, and some people that I've known have actually left Nashville. But I do have some art friends that I kind of like show stuff to, or like I'll talk to them about something. A lot of it is people who I've known who are like older. Like one of my previous English instructors when I was in school, She's also an author, but sometimes I'll send her stuff. Even like my resume, I'll be like, does this look good? But yeah. So I mean, I don't do it a whole lot because I have like a pretty good mix of artist friends and then non-artist friends. And then with the last year, I haven't really like seen a lot of my friends because of everything that was going on. But yeah, but I'm really like introverted too, though, and I just I kind of keep to myself. But I do have people that I can like bounce ideas off of.
Okay. So the songwriting, have you put that on the side, or are you still doing that?
Yeah, it is kind of on the side, but I want to get back to it. I miss that. I actually used to record. I taught myself to record music on GarageBand on a Mac computer.
Oh, absolutely. I do the same.
Yeah.
I do the same. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, GarageBand is cool. It's very user friendly. Very much. Mm-hmm. But I had some instrumentals in like an indie film, like it was by a local filmmaker, and then like short films and a play. I'm telling you, I try to seek out like random opportunities. But that was when I first started. That was like years ago. And then I was recording music just like for myself, teaching myself how to like layer instruments and do stuff like that. And then I actually worked like in the music business on the like very business side, like it was like computer stuff. And I liked that too. But I do want to get back into it. Earlier this year, I did like a worship service for one of the schools here. They do it like every week or every other week, I think. And I had an exhibit at their school, and they wanted me to do like a performance, but it was through Zoom. And it was like around the time that my exhibit was. Mm-hmm. So that was like the last time that I actually played piano like in front of anyone. And before that, it had been a while.
Okay.
And then I have a couple things coming up like later this fall. But I do want to get back into it. I miss it. It's just the art thing picked up, and there was some really cool opportunities, and it's hard to like say no.
Yeah.
Like that. So. Mm-hmm. But I do miss it though. But yeah, unfortunately, it has kind of gone to the side.
Well, what is your lane? Like, what are your songs? Are they pop or are they country? Especially Nashville.
I know, right? Country is the big thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I actually really like instrumental music. I like recording instrumental music. One thing I would like would be to have music like in more film and stuff like that, like the background music. And then I also like writing to hip hop beats, like adding piano and then like writing melodies. Like I've done some of that kind of stuff with like a friend of mine, and then also my brother who also does music. So I kind of want to get back into that too, just writing like melodies or like, choruses to like to hip hop beats, and then finding like a rapper to get on it or something.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
What's in your playlist?
Oh man, a little bit of everything, honestly. So I listen to a lot of 90s music still, to be honest. Like Tracy Chapman, she's one of my absolute favorite singers. And so I listen to her music. Kind of newer artists. There's a country duo called Maddie and Tay. I listen to them a lot. Yeah, they're like younger. They're like in their 20s, I think, but they've been around for a while. But I listen to their stuff a lot. I really like their stuff. Who else am I listening to? I listen to Tupac a lot. When I paint, I listen to Tupac a lot.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Well, what is it about Tupac that kind of gets you going?
I don't know. I get like really motivated when I listen to Tupac.
Yeah.
It's just something about his music, his delivery. Like, yeah.